Picture this. Standing alone at the base of the Great Pyramid, surrounded by silence so deep you can almost hear the weight of ancient stone. The air is still thick with heat, and yet you feel a chill run down your spine. It's as if the very earth beneath your feet hides something alive, something that's watching, waiting. Now imagine hearing whispers in an unknown tongue at Stonehenge, or seeing shapes move in the shadows of the Catacombs of Paris. Tonight, we take you into the mysterious and chilling journey of Daniel Royce, a paranormal investigator who uncovered more than just the history of these famous sites. He was searching for something older than any known civilization, something alien. And in his search, he found darkness beyond what we can comprehend. His last moments, shrouded in fear and mystery, they say he uncovered secrets never meant for human eyes. Are you ready to walk in his footsteps? If unraveling the mysteries of the paranormal and exploring alien secrets hidden in our world captivates you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This story is one you'll never forget. Daniel Royce was no ordinary investigator. His obsession with ancient sites had started in his youth, with legends whispered in hushed tones by his grandfather, a historian with a fascination for the supernatural. Over the years, Daniel had traveled from one strange corner of the world to another, uncovering clues that seemed to point to something much larger and far darker than simple hauntings or folklore. He believed these sites weren't just historical, they were doorways, links to ancient forces that predated humanity itself. And he was certain that these forces were still present, still watching. But Daniel's insatiable curiosity soon took a terrifying turn. The more he uncovered, the more he felt a sinister presence following him, a shadow that seemed to linger just out of sight. Those who knew him said he changed. He became gaunt, sleep-deprived, haunted by visions he refused to share. He told no one where he was going on his final journey, but his journal left behind a terrifying map of his last steps, each site more disturbing than the last. Number 1. The Great Pyramid of Giza, a monument to dark powers. Our story begins in Egypt, under the scorching sun and towering sands of Giza. The Great Pyramid stood tall, casting a shadow that seemed to stretch endlessly. To Daniel, it was more than a testament to human achievement. He believed it was built to honor, or perhaps imprison, something ancient, something beyond human understanding. He felt drawn to the lower, hidden chambers where, according to lore, pharaohs buried secrets never meant to be uncovered. Daniel had bribed a local guide named Hassan, a man whose family had guarded the pyramids for generations, with promises of money and secrecy. Hassan reluctantly led him through winding passages deep beneath the pyramid. The air grew colder as they descended, the walls slick with condensation that shouldn't have been there in the arid desert. An unnatural darkness seemed to close in around them, making it hard to see even with flashlights. In his journal, Daniel described a feeling of dread unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He wrote about strange symbols carved into the walls, hieroglyphs that didn't match any known language, symbols that seemed to twist and pulse in the light, as if alive. He heard whispers echoing through the chambers, soft but insistent, pulling him forward. One entry mentioned a deep, thrumming hum, a vibration that felt like it was coming from the very bones of the pyramid, as if something alive, something immense, was breathing within the stone. Then he saw them, dark figures, skeletal but distorted, elongated limbs reaching out toward him from the shadows. Their eyes glowed faintly, a sickly amber light that seemed to seep from their empty sockets. They stood in silent rows along the chamber walls, as if waiting or guarding something. Hassan turned pale, whispering prayers, begging Daniel to leave, to turn back. But Daniel pushed forward, feeling compelled to reach the end of the passage. The last thing he saw, he wrote, was a massive, ancient stone slab covered in strange symbols, and a warning carved in broken hieroglyphs. Do not wake the sleepers. A week after Daniel left Giza, Hassan was found dead on the outskirts of the pyramid complex. His eyes were open, wide with terror, and his fingers were bruised and bloody, as if he tried to claw his way out of some unseen nightmare. Number 2. Stonehenge, the Unseen Guardians. Next, Daniel traveled to Stonehenge in England, It was a sight that fascinated him from a young age. Massive stones standing in calculated formation, eerily precise, as though placed there by something more powerful than mere human hands. But what drew him wasn't the structure itself. It was the ancient legends of a doorway that opened only to those who knew how to see it. Under the cover of night, Daniel positioned himself within the inner circle of stones, letting the silence wash over him. He felt it again, that cold, unnatural chill. His journal described it as a piercing cold that gnaws at the soul. Shadows crept between the stones, and faint whispers filled the air, voices in a language lost to time. As midnight approached, Daniel felt an overpowering sensation, as though something massive and unseen was descending upon him. He felt the ground vibrate, faintly at first, then more intensely, as if the earth itself were alive. He saw a flicker of light, a thin, shimmering line, forming between two of the stones. The line grew wider, revealing something beyond. Shapes, dark and hulking, appeared on the other side, twisted forms moving in an eerie, silent dance. In a recording later recovered, Daniel spoke of a voice that echoed in his mind, calling itself the Keeper. It spoke of ancient guardians, watchers bound to the stones, their sole purpose to keep something at bay. It showed him visions of an endless darkness, a place where colossal creatures with too many eyes and mouths slithered across barren landscapes. These creatures, it whispered, had once ruled, feeding on the fears of humans. And one day, if the seals broke, they would rule again. He barely made it out of Stonehenge, stumbling out into the dawn with eyes haunted by what he had seen. His final words in the recording were filled with terror. Stonehenge is a prison, but it's weakening. They're waiting to come through. Number 3. The Catacombs of Paris, voices from the dead. The Catacombs of Paris were next, stretching beneath the city like veins. Nearly 7 million bones lined the narrow pathways, silent witnesses to centuries of death. To Daniel, they were more than a final resting place. They were the entrance to something far darker. Legends spoke of lost souls, of entire sections that seemed to shift and change, luring those who wandered too far into a labyrinth with no end. Under the cover of dusk, he slipped into the catacombs alone. The moment he entered, he described a suffocating sense of dread. The air was thick, almost damp, smelling of earth and rot. His footsteps echoed too loudly, and every so often, he'd catch a flicker of movement out of the corner of his eye, though nothing was ever there when he turned. He documented strange symbols scratched into the walls, symbols that he recognized from Giza and Stonehenge. They were sigils of binding, marks that had, perhaps, once been powerful enough to contain whatever lurked here. As he moved deeper, the walls seemed to pulse, as though the very stones were alive. In one of his last recordings, his voice trembled as he described a figure, a cloaked shape with hollow eyes that seemed to glow with a dull, greenish light. It spoke in a raspy voice, calling him by name. It told him it was a guardian of the gate, bound to protect something buried in the catacombs. It promised him knowledge, visions of ancient beings bound in the darkness, sleeping until humanity forgot. As he fled, he heard laughter, a sickly, hollow sound that echoed through the tunnels long after he was gone. Number 4. Angkor Wat, the final descent. Daniel's final destination was Angkor Wat, an ancient temple complex in Cambodia. Here, the locals spoke of the Watchers, entities that moved in silence, guarding secrets too dangerous for human eyes. Daniel felt as if he were being drawn into something inevitable, a final encounter with the ancient forces he'd been chasing. His last entry described his descent into a hidden temple at dusk. Inside, he found more symbols identical to those he'd seen in Giza, Stonehenge, and the catacombs. The walls were etched with scenes of creatures that defied logic. Beings with too many limbs, too many eyes, surrounded by humans bowing in worship or terror. He wandered further into the depths until he reached a vast chamber. In the center, a massive stone altar stood, surrounded by carvings of creatures locked in battle, clawing and writhing. He placed his hand on the altar and instantly felt a surge of cold. He heard the faint sound of chanting, Words he did not know but understood instinctively. The first ones, "They sleep beneath." Daniel described seeing shadowy figures emerging from the walls, shapes with elongated limbs and glowing eyes, their mouths twisted into unnatural grins. They surrounded him, their whispers filling his mind, speaking of a darkness older than time, of worlds beyond human understanding. They warned him that he had come too close, that his search had awakened forces that would not stop until they reclaimed the earth. His final recording ended with one haunting line, "They're awake, and they're coming." Daniel Royce was never seen again. His journal, recordings, and personal effects were found scattered in his hotel room, each entry and recording revealing glimpses of terror beyond human comprehension. Some say he was consumed by his own fears, lost in the horrors he'd only begun to understand. Others believe he truly found something, an ancient truth that humanity was never meant to know. Did he disappear because he unraveled secrets too dark to keep? Or did something take him, pulling him into the very depths he had dared to explore? These sites now seem like something more than ancient monuments, don't they? As if they're still alive, still watching, still waiting. The question remains, are they merely silent witnesses to history, or are they gateways to realms we're better off leaving alone? If you're as intrigued by the dark mysteries of our world as I am, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. What we'll uncover next? Well, sometimes it's better not to know. See you on the other side.